welcome back to another Bully Ball video. This time we're tackling a topic that we haven't really touched on, especially on the YouTube channel, but it's something that I personally want to start covering a little more on Bully Ball, and that is college football, specifically the coaching carousel that we've already seen before bowl games even start, before playoff games even start. That's kind of the unique part about college football, is that there's still games to be played this season, and coaches have shuffled all over the place already. Today, I am joined by Matt at Below Average OPS on Twitter. Matt, I'll get it out right away. He is an Ohio State fan. I'm a Michigan fan, but we're gonna keep it cool on this.
It's a rough time.
Not for all of us. So I just picked out 5 Power 5 coaching moves to talk about, and we're gonna give them grades. And I think the grades are gonna be for the school. Like, I'll get into this especially with one of them, but like, even if a move I don't think makes sense for the coach necessarily, for the school, that's what we're grading it on. Like, did they get a coach that I think will do well there? I guess we'll just jump right into the one that I was kind of referring to, and that is Deion Sanders as the head coach at Colorado, leaving Jackson State. I think we were both in agreement on this grade. I don't know how you give it anything other than an A+.
Yeah, this is like 2 thumbs up, big time. This is the coup that Colorado needed badly to really save their football program.
Yeah, that's the thing. For Colorado, this is about as good as they could possibly do. I think for other programs that Deion was linked to in the past, maybe like taking a swing on a guy that hadn't coached at the FBS level, maybe not something that a school of a bigger stature would want to do. But Colorado is one of the worst Power 5 schools historically. Exactly.
They haven't won 10 games, and I know it was a lot more recently than we would ever probably think, like within the last 6-7 years, but pretty much since then they have been perennially the worst team and getting worse. The finances haven't been there, their attendance hasn't been there. It's just a dumpster fire, and this changes everything.
It was 2016 that they won, I believe, 10 games and went to the Pac-12 championship, but they weren't close to that before, and they haven't been close to that since. So it was just like a complete outlier year. A lot of things fell into place.
And I think the exorbitant rate that he is going to bring in talent, like he was doing it at Jackson State with minimal resources, and we can get into that whole can of worms here in a minute. So now you're going to be opening that up to a Power 5 level, to a program that at least has some past success. I think if he can find a way to tap into that, like the Cordell Stewart years, basically just anything that's not this century really, if he can just find a way to kind of bring that attitude back and bring that culture back, I think they have a really, really good chance of turning this thing around. If all goes well, I think in 3 years we're going to be looking up at them as a consistent competitive football team. I'm not going to say they'll be great or anything, but with the landscape of college football shifting conference-wise, they could very well be big fish, small pond, and that would be huge for Deion, because if he can continue to bring the talent in that he has been bringing in at Jackson State, now on a Power 5 level, in a major conference, with USC out of the picture, with UCLA out of the picture, possibly Oregon out of the picture, that is going to completely change the landscape for the entirety of this program.
Matt Rhule taking the job at Nebraska from Scott Frost, where I think a lot of people thought Scott Frost was going to work out there, and then maybe we've seen now that he was kind of a Josh Heupel merchant at UCF.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, Scott Frost kind of had us all fooled. His Nebraska tenure, kind of a disaster, and now they turn and hire former Carolina Panthers coach, former Baylor coach Matt Rhule, who I think I would grade this as about a B.
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty fair.
I think it's pretty good for where Nebraska is right now. The thing with with Nebraska hiring a coach is it's really difficult to recruit.
It's brutal, especially since the Big Ten move. It's not the Big 12 anymore, where you kind of have the middle of the country that you can actively recruit. That's kind of been poached from you by the schools just a little bit south of you, almost in its entirety, and they have really no success to speak of since they've moved conferences outside of the one Big Ten championship appearance.
Yeah, where they got smoked.
Exactly. I mean, that was ugly. I think the most famous part of that game is probably the one dude just getting absolutely cleaned on that crack block on the long
Bell.
touchdown play. Yeah, that was that's like the only vivid memory that I have of Nebraska football in the Big Ten.
The thing with Nebraska is if you're just recruiting your state and honestly the surrounding states, the team's not going to be that good. You have to figure out a way to recruit Texas if you are coaching at Nebraska.
Just off what you just said, he does have the ability to, but I do wonder how much of that was him being at Baylor and being able to recruit people to come play close to home, and rather than like, hey, come up to the cornfields of Nebraska and play here.
Yeah, Nebraska's just a tough sell, but even under Frost this year, they had quite a bit of success in the portal, so maybe that's the path forward for them. I mean, Trey Palmer, Casey Thompson, those are both good portal pickups this year. I think if Nebraska's aspiring to become like a national powerhouse again, it's just not going to happen in Lincoln, Nebraska. But if they're aspiring to win the Big Ten West, that's a very attainable goal. Even with USC and UCLA coming in, it shouldn't be as difficult as Scott Frost made it look. I think Matt Rhule could do some good work there. However, Big Ten West got a little harder, not just with the addition of USC and UCLA, but Wisconsin went and hired Luke Fickell, which I have to give an A+ to, because I didn't think that Fickell was getting pulled out of Cincinnati for any Power 5 job that wasn't Ohio State.
Yeah, this is the biggest win Wisconsin could have hoped for, and it's just everything that Fickell embodies, and you really saw it that one year where he basically ran Ohio State in between Tressel and Urban, and you saw how much he was doing with really the limited amount of resources he had. I mean, dude had Joe Bauserman playing quarterback and still had a top 10 defense in the country, and you watched him carry that right over to Cincinnati, and he turned them into, I would say, the best Group of 5 school this century, not named Boise State. And that's super impressive, all things considered.
Maybe TCU back in the day when they were Group of 5, but I mean, Cincinnati made it to the playoff. In the 4-team format, getting a Group of 5 team to the playoff is so improbable. And I had in my mind that Fickell was staying at Cincinnati until something happened with Ryan Day and the Ohio State job opened up.
I think everybody kind of had that feeling, and it just felt like this never-ending waiting process. And I gotta be honest, I think he even saw the line in the sand there, like it was never gonna happen. And to many Ohio State fans, myself included, that's sad, because he brings this legitimacy and intensity that is missing from a lot of big programs right now. And I would say Ohio State would be one of them. He is the antithesis of what Ryan Day is. And Ryan Day, to me, is a guy who does a little with a lot. Luke Fickell gets a lot out of a little. And now he's going to go to Wisconsin, where he's going to have a much easier time recruiting than Cincinnati, Ohio. And I never thought I would say that about Madison, Wisconsin, but hey, Skyline Chili is a disease in its own right. So I feel like that's a big thing for him, is his ability to build a culture and his ability to develop talent. And now he's going to be able to develop talent that is going to come in at a little bit of a higher clip. Like those 4 stars aren't going to be as sparse. The 3 stars he continues to develop are still going to be there. And who knows, he might still stick with some 5 stars, and the portal is going to be wide open for them.
Fickell's first hires have been 2 offensive coaches, including the offensive coordinator from North Carolina, Phil Longo. And that, on the surface, is not Wisconsin football.
It's beautiful. I love this.
It's so weird, and I can't wait to watch, Wisconsin play Illinois, and Illinois looks like a 2016 Wisconsin, and Wisconsin looks like Jeff Brohm Purdue. And Wisconsin
they just also
kept Braylon Allen.
Exactly. For now, at least. Who knows what's going on there?
He posted that he's not.
I feel like that's about as sure of a thing as you can get then. So that's huge for them.
Yeah. If you have Braylon Allen and you're not giving him the ball, I don't know what you're doing. So they're gonna run the ball. At least this year, it's still going to look a little bit more like traditional Wisconsin. They'll probably take a quarterback out of the transfer portal. But I'm interested to see what Wisconsin does. It's about time the Big Ten West stops being pathetic. So I mentioned Jeff Brohm Purdue earlier. Jeff Brohm finally took the Louisville job, which was offered to him when they hired Satterfield. I would give this, I don't know, I think maybe a B for Louisville. I like Jeff Brohm as a coach, but Satterfield just had a good season at Louisville. I think it was kind of predetermined among the Louisville fan base that Satterfield was going pretty much no matter what happened, so he kind of saw the writing on the wall and got out of there. But I guess for the options available to them and from a program standpoint, Brohm made too much sense to not hire. And he is a good coach. He did a lot with, a little at Purdue. I mean, his quarterback and his running back were walk-ons, and they just played in the Big Ten championship game.
He's an offensive genius at the college level, and I do feel a little bit bad for Purdue that they still have one with Matt Painter with their basketball team, and now they lose Brohm. Like, I can't think of a better offensive brain than the two of them at the same school, and now they lose Brohm, and I think that's a huge loss for Purdue, but it's a major positive for the ACC and especially Louisville, because that is a conference that is just floating its way closer and closer to being on par with the AAC, the Sun Belt.
It's just a big old Big Ten West over there.
It's nasty. It's really gross.
The
and
ACC
thankfully Florida State looks good too. They need some of these programs to really start to pick it up, like Florida State this year, and stay there, because you cannot have a Clemson team this bad running your show at 11-2. That can't happen. That's embarrassing.
How many games would Clemson win if they were in the Big Ten East
this year? With the way
with a down Michigan State, probably like 8 at. But I think Maryland would give Clemson trouble.
Yeah, I feel like anybody that can run the ball, and with the issues that Dabo ever had letting go of his trust of DJ, I think they're about an 8-win team.
Yeah, not to spend time talking about the Louisville hire to dunk on Clemson, but the ACC as a whole, it's kind of the same way I feel about the Big Ten West. It's about time the ACC got serious with their coaching hires.
Exactly, and this is about as good as you can do if you're Louisville, and it's huge for Brohm, because now you're going to have a vast pasture compared to what you just had recruiting wise at Purdue, and now you've got that in Louisville, and they can pull in talent. They've shown that they can bring in talent, even though they've been this weird carousel of coaches for the last 15 years, but they can bring in talent, and they've shown it. And Jeff Brohm develops skill positions at an exorbitant clip. I am interested to see if the defense that they had this year, because they, for a lot of their inconsistencies, were one of the best pass rushes in the country. So I'm very curious to see if that can stay up while their offense takes a tick up, because if they can, with the talent they've been bringing in from the portal, if Brohm can keep that going, that's a legitimate 8-9 win team next year.
So finally, we've liked all the ones that we've talked about so far. We're gonna have to clear out a little time to talk about Auburn hiring Hugh Freeze in possibly the laziest, most uninspired coaching search since the last time Auburn was looking for a head coach.
So boring and dull and sad.
And stupid.
Yeah, remarkably stupid.
I want to understand. Okay, so if we're being honest with ourselves, the basis for hiring Hugh Freeze is because he's beat Nick Saban twice.
There's nothing else.
Right, because the excuses that people say is like, oh, he did good at Liberty. No, he didn't. Their last 3 games this year, they lost to UConn, a terrible Virginia Tech team, and New Mexico State, who is one of the worst teams in FBS. Mm-hmm. They lost those 3 games in a row. That is not good. Even at Liberty, that's not good.
I've seen a lot of people point to Malik Willis and all these different areas, and I'm like, you may be right. Like, he did fine at Liberty. What did he do at Liberty that makes you think that he should be running an SEC school, and not just any SEC school, Auburn?
And then, okay, so people are like, oh, he has SEC experience. Ole Miss was good when they were cheating their ass off. You can't do that anymore. because everyone is.
Yeah, that playing field's a little bit even.
It's extremely even. You're not going to out-cheat Texas A&M.
You think Nick Saban's not pulling strings?
You're in the same conference as Georgia. It's not going to happen. The worst one is like, well, he beat Saban 2 years in a row. That first game, who was starting at quarterback for Alabama for the 2014 Alabama Ole Miss game? It was Blake Sims. And Bama lost by 6 on the road in Oxford.
What a throwback.
Congrats, you beat probably the worst Saban-Bama team since he got the ball rolling there. And then they win again in 2015 in, all due respect to Chad Kelly and that team, the single flukiest win I've ever seen in college football. Like, Chad Kelly throws up a prayer, bounces off 2 helmets, Ole Miss catches it for a touchdown. That was not real.
I'm not a religious person, and that game almost had me in church the next day. But
the entire basis of hiring Hugh Freeze, because he beat Saban after you fired Gus Malzahn, who legitimately beat good Saban teams.
And that same Gus Malzahn who just played in the American Conference Championship game at UCF.
Malzahn won a natty. Played in the natty. They lost to Florida State. My bad. I was giving him a little too much credit. He beat Saban, good Saban teams with like semi-regularity.
And not with a lot of talent.
Nick Marshall at quarterback. All due respect. Love Nick Marshall.
He was a converted wideout or a DB playing quarterback and beat Alabama.
Yeah, and went to the national championship. None of Auburn's excuses for making a hire like this, and I don't even think we're going to touch on like Hugh Freeze off the field. He's an awful person. I don't have to say more than that.
I mean, the only thing I really wanted to say about that was it pretty much just shows you the landscape of college football in that the only thing that matters is your success. And the only reason LSU got rid of Coach O was because the success wasn't there, given everything that was happening off the field with him that they knew about. This is along the same lines as that. Auburn's had their own issues with sexual assault in their sports programs that they kind of just continue to sweep under the rug, and this is just a major indictment on that program that they don't care.
Any excuse that they could give, for a football reason, why they hired Hugh Freeze, it's disingenuous. It doesn't make any sense. It makes perfect sense to me why Lane Kiffin didn't want that job. Now,
absolutely, it's a mess, top to bottom. It's a mess,
and you have to work under those boosters and Auburn's board, and it's just
their traffic cone of an AD that never really seems to be the same person for longer than 2 years. And on top of that, you are now putting Hugh Freeze in the state of Alabama with, granted, this is probably the worst Alabama team I've seen since Hugh Freeze beat Alabama, but you're putting him in this state with that team and Troy and South Alabama. I think there's an argument right now that you could say they're the 4th best program in the state of Alabama.
I was just going to say,
just got worse.
Worst Bama team. It's also the worst Auburn team I've seen in quite some time.
Oh, they're putrid. They're so bad.
I think they were the worst team in the SEC, and the SEC has Vanderbilt.
Yeah, it's rough. Free Tank. That's all I gotta say. You got a free Tank, Bixby. Get that man out of there.
Get Cadillac Williams out of there. They had 2 candidates, and when one of them said no, they just hired the other one. There was no process about it. There was nothing. It's the laziest, most uninspired coaching search, like I said before. And to spin the wheel and land on Hugh Freeze, and to think that that's going to make you any better, because I don't know what Auburn's expectations for themselves are. They think they should be where Alabama is. It's never going to happen.
No.
If that's your expectation, you're just going to be a revolving door of coaches every year. Hugh Freeze was cheating harder than anyone has ever cheated at the time. And paying players, always been about paying players. That's not an indictment on the players. It's not even really, like, the paying players aspect is not even really an indictment on Hugh Freeze. The fact that he was cheating his way to #1 recruiting classes and never won anything. A couple regular season games against Saban.
He didn't reach an SEC championship.
No.
It's like, cool, you beat Alabama, now what? This is an Auburn program that is more than just about beating Alabama. You're just trying to get back to the #1 goal of your season. And I think Michigan fans everywhere will tell you how important that is, to be at that level with your rival, because once you get there, you're solidifying yourself as a national powerhouse along with it. Auburn has to get there, and Hugh Freeze is not the guy that's going to get you there. No. He is not Jim Harbaugh. He is not Jim Harbaugh in the faintest of breaths.
And the
And I have given Jim
thing
Harbaugh
at
so much
Auburn,
shit for years.
the thing at Auburn is Hugh Freeze is not going to get the amount of time that Michigan gave Jim Harbaugh.
No, not at all.
If this thing's not on the tracks in 3 years, he's back to Liberty.
Exactly. We're going to look up in 2026, and he's going to be at New Mexico State coaching in Albuquerque in front of 50 people, wondering, oh, I wonder what happened there. And there's so many other coaches you could have gone with.
You could have went the Tennessee route. They hired Heupel, and could they have done any better than that? I mean, that was kind of the Schiano thing, and maybe you don't want to follow Tennessee's process for the coaching search, but where they landed was pretty good.
Exactly. Hey, if you trip and stumble and you still land where you're going, it looks like you walked there the whole time.
It was more like they fell out of a plane with no parachute, but hey, they didn't die. They didn't die when they hit the ground.
There was a net there, and that net was Josh Heupel.
Yeah. So that's going to wrap up our talk about the coaching carousel. Thank you for joining me, Matt. We will have you back on, I'm sure, especially through the off season for more college football content. Is there anything you would like to say before the college football playoff in regards to your team or anyone as Ohio State readies to play Georgia?
I feel like we're playing with house money now. We shouldn't be here, and here we are, and everybody's expecting us to get absolutely destroyed by Georgia the same way they were expecting us to get destroyed by Alabama in 2014. Yes, I'm grasping at straws. I am doing anything for hope right now. It is a really, really, really bad time in Columbus, and the bad times in Columbus are being in the college football playoff. So it could always be worse.
Oh, I know. I'm well aware of that. Well, I'm thankful for the bad times in Columbus. Thank you to everyone for watching. Like and subscribe and all that corny stuff. We will see you next time.